Olá, TUTAMÉIA está ao vivo, transmitindo diretamente dos nossos estúdios domésticos, com a Eleonora,
O Rodolfo.
e a gente traz para você agora uma entrevista que realizamos durante visita que fizemos ao Irã, entrevista com um professor da Universidade de Teerã, especialista em assuntos internacionais.
Uhum. Sim, nós falamos com o professor Foad Izadi no dia 22 de novembro de 2025, falamos com ele num hotel em Teherã, praticamente no mesmo momento em que se anunciava a prisão de Jair Bolsonaro. E então foi nesse momento que a gente conversou com o professor sobre a situação da sociedade iraniana, sobre a questão das sanções, sobre a questão das ideias que se tem, que muitos sobre as quais se fala em vários países, e no Brasil, sobre a situação do Irã, e uma entrevista que fizemos tratando de todos esses assuntos.
O professor Foad Izadi, que é especialista em assuntos internacionais na Universidade de Teerã, você já o conhece aqui do TUTAMÉIA, a gente já teve a oportunidade de entrevistá-lo à distância em dois momentos aí, os momentos dos ataques de Israel a Teherã e depois, após os bombardeios que os Estados Unidos fizeram contra instalações nucleares. E agora, antes mesmo ainda no Brasil, a gente conversou com ele sobre a visita que faríamos ao Irã e começamos a acertar a entrevista, foi acertada para que ele iria no nosso hotel na tarde do dia 22, mas, para nossa surpresa, a gente teve um ótimo encontro com ele de manhã na antiga embaixada dos Estados Unidos, hoje um museu chamado Museu do Covil da Espionagem Norte-Americana no Irã, a embaixada que foi tomada pelos estudantes depois da Revolução Iraniana. Então, a gente vamos contar um pouquinho aqui sobre a embaixada, Leonardo, enquanto mostrei uma foto aqui, somos nós três, então, na entrada hoje o museu, né, Museu Covil da Espionagem dos Estados Unidos no Irã. Covil da CIA.
Covil da CIA. Essa embaixada foi tomada pelos estudantes logo após a Revolução Iraniana, em 4 de novembro de 79, relembrando que a Revolução aconteceu no início de 79, e os estudantes tomaram a embaixada em protesto contra o apoio dos Estados Unidos ao Shah, que tinha sido o regime do Shah tinha caído na Revolução, o Shah estava nos Estados Unidos, os estudantes queriam que o Shah voltasse para ser julgado no Irã e que também todos os ativos iranianos que estavam no exterior fossem devolvidos aos iranianos, o que depois foi conseguido, né, nesse movimento que durou 444 dias. Os iranianos mantiveram 52 reféns e o movimento conseguiu o desbloqueio desses bens. Foi uma luta que teve êxito, né? E hoje essa embaixada virou um museu com toda a parafernália de espionagem, né, que naquele momento os Estados Unidos usavam para manter o poder do Shah e o poder da ditadura da realeza, então realeza iraniana.
A gente vai mostrar nos próximos dias aí o vídeo dessa visita, os detalhes. É a única embaixada dos Estados Unidos no mundo, eu acho, que foi aberta e agora está exposta ao público de como eles se organizavam, né? Então, a gente vai mostrar essa visita e também a palestra que foi proferida, conversa, né? Uma roda de conversa que ocorreu com o professor Izadi na própria sede lá no museu, Mas agora vamos à entrevista exclusiva que fizemos com ele. Uh,
A entrevista está em inglês. Ele trata da situação do Irã depois dos ataques que o país sofreu dos Estados Unidos e de Israel em junho. Diz que o país hoje está muito mais preparado para enfrentar eventualmente algum novo ataque. Diz que os Estados Unidos, né, e os seus aliados, Israel, querem balcanizar o Irã, querem fragmentar o Irã, dominar o Irã, derrubar o governo e fragmentar o Irã e usar esse lugar, né, o Irã, para pressionar a China, os BRICS, a intenção estadunidense é derrotar o Irã para também conseguir ter o seu domínio, né, na Ásia Ocidental, o Oriente Médio, e a partir daí minar os esforços de construção do mundo multipolar. Lembrando que o Irã é integrante dos BRICS. Então, na visão do professor Foad Izadi, o mundo se divide entre os Estados Unidos e seus aliados, né, e aqueles que querem um mundo multipolar, livre da dominação estadunidense, e que hoje se organizam, entre outros lugares, preferencialmente nos BRICS.
Isso, ele também apontou os desafios que a Revolução Iraniana ainda precisa enfrentar, né, superar para poder avançar mais na conquista de mais igualdade e desenvolvimento do país. E também falou sobre o que é ser revolucionário, já que ao longo dessa a gente ouviu muito falar da Revolução Islâmica, Revolução Iraniana, Revolução. O que é ser revolucionário hoje também foi uma questão que ele abordou nessa entrevista que, como a Eleonora falou, está em inglês, mas a gente fez a transcrição dela e traduziu para o português, tradução automática para o português, está no nosso site, do TUTAMÉIA já está lá, então, nesse momento, se você quiser, pode entrar no site tutameia.jor.br, é o texto de abertura do site, e está toda a entrevista em português.
A entrevista trata de várias questões, né? As mulheres no Irã, a energia nuclear, a religião, né? Governo e religião, a questão do bombardeamento midiático, que ele diz que, especialmente a juventude iraniana, né? Sofre de várias formas nos Estados Unidos, mas ele diz que, por conta das bombas lançadas, né? E foram atingidas as unidades de energia nuclear e várias cidades nesse entorno, houve pelo menos 1.000 mortes nesses ataques. Ele diz que essas bombas tiveram o efeito de unificar o país em relação à discussão se deveria ou não o Irã deveria ou não tentar uma aproximação maior com os Estados Unidos. Ele diz que uma geração de jovens, né, ficou percebendo, né, que os Estados Unidos não querem uma união com o Irã, mas querem a dominação do Irã, e ele diz que os Estados Unidos acabaram com esse ato do bombardeamento, criando uma nova geração de anti-americanos, geração essa que há 46 anos tomou o poder com a Revolução Iraniana. Ele fala das divisões internas da sociedade do Irã, né, justamente aqueles que buscam essa aproximação com os Estados Unidos, medidas na área econômica de corte neoliberal, e que esses foram agora mais isolados, ou ficaram numa situação muito difícil face a esses ataques, e ele vê, então, que a cidade iraniana acabou se unificando, né, em torno do governo atual, em razão desses ataques. Nesses desafios que a gente perguntou, quais seriam os desafios da cidade iraniana nesse momento, ele cita, entre outros, justamente a questão de é preciso fazer com que os que defendem o neoliberalismo fiquem isolados, já que neoliberalismo e revolução iraniana, segundo ele, não fazem parte não devem fazer parte do mesmo conjunto. Não foram esses princípios que nortearam há 46 anos a derrubada do Shah.
Então vamos
Vamos lá.
ao vídeo, vamos rodar o VT, como se diz, né?
Ok.
Gravando?
Gravando. Professor, thank you so much for giving us this interview. We are in Teherã. It was very nice to finally meet you because you have made 2 interviews with you with the internet. So we are very glad to meet you in person here in Teherã. I would like to start. I just read in Tehran Times an interview that the foreign minister of Iran gave to The Economist, saying that Iran stands more ready than ever to decisively counter any act of aggression from the Israel regime. He said that now Iranian defensive capacities have been significantly enriched since the war, the 12-day war last June. And that the nation has been transformed in a formidable fortress. What can you tell us about this situation here in Iran concerning this possibility of another war or the continuation of a war with Israel at that point?
You know, last time Iran was attacked, Iran was surprised because the attacks came in the middle of negotiations. Steve Witkoff had announced that he would be in Muscat. Mr. Araghchi, Iran's foreign minister, had announced that they would be in Muscat. It was supposed to be a Sunday meeting, and the Americans attacked Friday morning, 2 days before. So that taught Iranian officials a lot of lessons. The techniques that Israelis use, the deception operation with negotiations, made Iranian leaders realize that they need to be more prepared because everybody knows that Israelis, Americans don't have any ethical standards. And they have a lot of weapons, and they want to balkanize Iran. They want to overthrow the Iranian government and separate different parts of Iran and basically finish Iran, in their opinion. So because of that reason, in the last 5 months since the attacks, Iran is becoming more prepared in terms of military, in terms of intelligence, in terms of political contacts. And I think given the fact that Iran would not be surprised again because of the previous experience, the cost of attacking Iran has increased. So if they're doing cost-benefit analysis, the cost is going to be more. And the hope is that they don't make the same mistake as before, because last time they thought that they can attack Iran, overthrow the government, and then reach their goals. And they failed. And the cost that Israeli paid was not minimal. If they attack Iran again, the cost is going to be much more because Iran is more prepared. So the hope that Iranian officials have is that there is no more war. But you can never know, because we know the Israelis can engage in a genocide. They killed more than 60,000 people in Palestine, mostly women and children. So they are capable of engaging in very serious criminal activity. And because of that reason, Iranian military is very vigilant.
Okay, when you say that the cost of attacking Iran again will be higher, why is that?
You know, Iranian officials, military officials, intelligence officials, learned a lot of things. Last time Iran was attacked, within 24 hours, they had killed many Iranian military leaders. Within 24 hours, Iran was able to stand up on its feet again, and they started shooting back at the Israelis. So Israelis did not think this would happen so quickly. They thought that it would take maybe weeks for Iran to be able to manage itself again. But Iran managed to come back in 24 hours. And then it was the Israelis that asked for a ceasefire, because what Iran was hitting in Israel was quite painful. And if Iran could manage itself in 12 days to force the other side to ask for a ceasefire, now that Iran is more prepared, it's going to be more difficult for Israelis to achieve their goals. So Iranians learned a lot of lessons in terms of intelligence, in terms of how they need to manage the ballistic missiles that Iran has. They know how to safeguard some of the commanders, because last time Israelis attacked commanders' houses because of the this negotiation deception. People thought that if Israelis want to attack, they would attack if the negotiations fail. And so people were somewhat surprised. But this time no one is going to be surprised. When you're ready for an attack, then it's going to be more difficult for the other side to achieve its goals.
But in your opinion, where Iran is near to war now?
I don't think they are done. I don't think Israelis are done. I don't think Americans are done. Trump is going to be in office for another 3 years, more than 3 years. And I think they want to finish Iran within the next 3 years. The only country that resisted genocide in a serious manner was Iran, and the people in Yemen. These two countries resisted genocide in Palestine. And so they think that if they can get rid of Iran, then they can deal with Yemen. Yemen is going to be easier than Iran, so if they can take care of Iran, they take care of Yemen, then they can have full domination in the Middle East, full domination. They can control the oil, they can control everything, and use Middle East to put pressure on China, put pressure on Russia, put pressure on other independent countries like Brazil and other countries.
So, excuse me, so you think a war against Iran or an American victory or Israeli victory against Iran would harm Brazil?
Yes.
In a sense.
The reason is that there is this, we are moving towards a multipolar world. And during the era of globalization, you had integration of economies. Economies became integrated. But as we are going forward, because of the pressure they put on China, the pressure they put on Russia, the pressure they put on Brazil for working with China and Russia, and countries like Iran, then these countries realize that they need to separate. So as we go forward, we are going to see a new world with two blocks. One block is United States and the countries that are under domination of United States, and other block is going to be independent countries. Russia, China, Iran, Brazil, the countries that don't want to be dominated. Because we remember what American domination is. We used to have an American puppet government in Iran before the 1979 Islamic Revolution. In Brazil, you know what American domination is, because occasionally you get puppet governments in Brazil that are in line with US policy.
Like Bolsonaro.
Like Bolsonaro, that was arrested today. Good news, congratulations. Yes. So when a country is dominated by United States, then lots of difficulties will arise. The country cannot grow properly. So the first step for a normal growth is independence. Independence from US domination. And that is happening because a lot of countries realize that with the United States, since the US is a power in decline, they want to keep their status. They are not able to do that, so they start hitting different places, causing difficulties, supporting genocide as we have seen in Gaza. So overall, I'm optimistic about future because the US power is declining in countries like Brazil, like China, like Russia, are gaining power, they're becoming stronger. And the result is that as they separate from the United States, the US has less tools to pressure them, less devices, less opportunity to pressure them. And this is good. This is good. Once the decline of US goes through its process, then the US becomes like a normal country. And once the US becomes a normal country, then you can deal with it normally. But as long as they think they're superpower, as long as they think they can dominate others, then the only solution is resistance. Resistance against domination, resistance against outside pressure. And the countries that have experienced that, they need to work together. So that's why China is buying Iranian oil, Russia is helping Iran with some military equipment, Iran, Brazil, relations are good. If you go to some of the markets here, the meat is Brazilian meat. So Iran imports meat from Brazil. A lot of economic cooperation between Iran and Brazil.
You said that Iran is preparing for eventually another attack. But how about the society in Iran since the attack in June? We read that there is some kind of division in the vision of the society, how to deal with the United States. Some in power or in the government or in society, or some bourgeois faction may defend that it's possible to have business with the United States, to have negotiation in the United States, and some part of the society does not believe in that. What happened to this division after the attack, after the war, the 12 days war? How is the society dealing with this situation right now? Is there this kind of division? Can you tell us about the impact of the attack in the Iranian society?
You know, Iran has a population of 90 million people. So you have different segments of society, you have diverse opinion. Right now we have a reformist government.
Yes.
When Mr. Pezeshkian came into office, he said that he wants to negotiate with the US, he wants to lower tension with the US. That's why they started negotiations. And then the US attacked Iran in the middle of negotiations. So the people who have been thinking about normalizing relations with the US realize this is very difficult because the US doesn't want normal relations with Iran. The US wants to overthrow the Iranian government and dominate Iran. So a lot of young people, I teach at University of Teherán, a lot of young people that did not see the revolution, did not see the last 40 years when these things happened, are realizing why their parents were anti-American. They realize why there was a revolution. So Mr. Trump has turned a new generation of Iranians anti-American. So if Iranian government wanted to do that, it would be difficult. But Trump, by its actions, his actions resulted in unity inside Iran. There's this rally around the flag effect. People are gathering with each other because they know what the US has done to Iran. So people with different types of opinions and policy thinking are putting aside a lot of their differences because they see their country is in danger.
How about the businessman, the bourgeois that always has a kind of neoliberalism idea of what to do in Iran? How they are dealing with this, and how the government are dealing with the businessmen that still want to make business with the United States and has a neoliberalism idea about the society?
You know, we have those people. We have people who believe in neoliberalism. We have people that think that they can deal with US, trade with US. The only problem they have is that the US is not ready to deal with them. So maybe they want to deal with US, maybe they like US, but the love is one-sided, it's not two-sided. And so they are disappointed. They're disappointed from the experience that Iran has had. They have some media outlets, they have some influence in public opinion. They have been trying to influence public opinion to have normal relations with the US, and many people don't mind normal relations. But the problem is that the US is not interested in normal relations. US is interested in domination. So they're having a hard time.
In our previous interview, you said that during that one of the goals of Israel and the United States with the attack was to insufflate the population against the government. And you said that instead of mass demonstrations against the government, what you had was massive demonstrations in defense of the government, in defense of peace, in defense of the revolution. I wonder what was done with that spirit. I mean, did you get to keep all these people organized, or they will come when and if a call from the government is necessary?
You know, you had this rally around the flag right after the attacks.
Mm-hmm.
But as time passes, as life becomes normal,
Mm-hmm.
then these people feel normal.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have normal life, then you remember your difficulties, then this unity becomes less little by little. So that is bad news. The good news is that the rhetoric of Trump and Netanyahu, because they threaten Iran every day, when they make these anti-Iran remarks, people remember, oh, these people are still planning against their country. So they remember that unity is necessary. So we go back and forth. It's a process. A lot of people understand what's going on. So Iranian people, the country has gone through an educational period. They learned a lot of things about the United States, about imperialism, about the history of US-Iran relations. As long as Trump is president, I think this concern about the US will continue, because Trump is the person who attacked Iran.
Well, and we see, I don't know if it's correct, this evaluation, but it seems to us, running around or walking around the streets of Tehran, that there is a government action to make people aware of what's going on and what are the goals. I mean, we can't read the words, but we've seen lots of outdoor panels and with what it seems like government propaganda or nationalist propaganda or Islamic revolution propaganda. So there is a specific action of the government to elevate the spirits of the people.
You know, we have a number of channels that are funded by Netanyahu.
Mm-hmm.
That are beaming towards Iran with satellite dishes. We have BBC in Persian, UK. We have Voice of America from the United, all Persian services. So there's a bomb every day. There is a propaganda bombardment of Iranian people. So the 12-day war was physical bombardment.
Mm-hmm.
Since that time, before the war, during the war, after the war, you have this propaganda bombardment. And people like us at the university, maybe some television programs, different types of people try to present the truth, the facts, because the way these outside powers, propaganda outlets work is that they present some truth and they mix it with lies.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes difficult to realize which one is truth, which one is lie, because it's all mixed. And it's our job as professors, as people who talk to audiences, to tell them the facts and let them decide. Let them decide what they want to do. So there are some effort, for example, Tehran municipality is in the hand of the principalist camp. So the government is reformist, the municipality, the mayor's office, they are principalists. So sometimes in the city, in Tehran, you see some billboards that are designed to influence public opinion. So there are some efforts like that. And then you have a lot of efforts from outside to influence public opinion, because they realize that if Iran stays strong, then they cannot dominate this part of the world. So they need to overthrow the Iranian government. And how do you do that? With military attack, it didn't happen. So it needs to go through propaganda, it needs to go through some riots in the streets. So maybe they can achieve their goal in that sense. Outside your hotel, there is a bookshop. Did you see the bookshop? Mm-hmm. So you go to the other side of the street. I encourage you to visit the bookshop. So if you go there, it's all in Farsi, but there are some posters, some artifacts that you may like. So I encourage you to go there and visit. And if you visit that bookshop, you get some sense about this culture of resistance. Mm-hmm. Culture of resistance is that when you pressure a people, two things can happen. They can surrender, this is one option. The other option is to fight back. And Iranians throughout their history have shown that when you put pressure on Iranians, they fight back. And you see some of the examples of this culture of resistance in the bookstore outside your hotel.
You have a culture of using poems, poetry,
yes,
to show the resistance to call people to resistance.
Yes. So there are a lot of Iranian culture and literature engages in poetry a lot. This is part of the culture. So you have poetry that is used to unite people, to oppose powers that are trying to dominate. You have some music that use this poetry as lyrics of music. You have some movies about the war during Saddam's time, how Iranians resisted the war and helped the war efforts. So there are some of these activities that take place.
Mm-hmm. Today we had the opportunity to visit the ex-embassy of the United States in Iran, or the bunker of CIA, and everybody that we talked with remember the action of the students that attacked the embassy. I wonder, how is the organization of the students and the organization of the youth today?
There are some student groups, student organizations. Maybe I teach at University of Teherã. We have 15, 16 student organizations that are political. Mm-hmm. Then you have scientific student organizations for whatever field. You have some cultural student organizations. But University of Tehran has about 50,000 students. 50. So you have a lot of students with different lines of thinking. So they gather together, they form a group. Sometimes we go and talk to them. Today, University of Tehran has television. University of Tehran television. So I went as professor. There were 3 PhD students, and there was this debate. So they disagreed with a lot of things I said. So they asked the university to invite this professor, and we want to debate him. Mm-hmm. So we went today. So before coming here, I was there. So I met you in the morning, then I went to class, then we had a conference, then I went to this debate, then I'm seeing you again. So before coming here, I went to debate. And so there is a lot of give and take. So they were saying that maybe people should not do death to America. So you go to demonstrations in Iran, there's a slogan, death to America. Mm-hmm. So they were saying maybe people should not say this. So I told them, look, saying death to America is not mandatory in Iran. You don't say it, many people don't say it. And the people who say it are generally people who have been affected negatively by the United States. Maybe they lost some family members, maybe they are tired of the sanctions against Iran, they know that the US is responsible. So I said that we should let people express themselves. Some people want to say death to America, okay, say. Some people don't want to say, don't say. So a lot of debate is going on. A lot of debate is going on, and I think this is generally helpful, because the more debate you have, the more talks you have, the less bombardment of outside propaganda will work.
You were talking about the resistance movement. Israel assassinated many important figures of the resistance, of the Iranian resistance, Hezbollah, managed to make a lot of killings in the past two years. How do you see the resistance? There is a case of Syria, of course, that's very important. How do you see this movement as a whole? Is it getting more fragile? It got more fragile in this period of 2 years? How can the resistance, this movement, gain momentum again?
You know, we have this axis of resistance lost a number of leaders. In Lebanon, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, he was assassinated. Among Palestinians, Ismail Haniyeh, the Sinwar, the different leaders of this resistance movement were assassinated. Iran lost a number of scientists, generals. So these are hits. This is bad news. The good news is that we have a lot of young people that can fill the shoes of the people that we lost. And when the country was attacked, whether it was Iran or Lebanon or Palestine, people realized this is unjust. Palestinians have been under occupation for more than 70 years, and they were experiencing a genocide. They couldn't kill everybody. They killed more than 60,000 people. But the young people who survived the genocide, they don't remember, they don't forget what the Israelis did to their families. And the people in Lebanon, they don't forget what the Israelis have done to Lebanon. Iranians don't forget. So this creates a new generation of resistors, a new generation of people who believe in resistance, because they know if you don't resist, what will happen to you. And they realize the importance of power. They realize that they need to become powerful so the Israelis cannot hit them again. So in practice, Israelis may think that we won. They may have this false sense of victory. In reality, they have generated a new generation of resistance fighters. And in the long run, it is very much against their interest when you have this pool of people, this millions of people who oppose Israel because of their personal experience, because of what Israelis have done to them.
So what can happen to the Israel government in your
I think they will be gone. I think Israel will not be able to survive. They are going to disintegrate.
The country.
The country.
Why?
The country. Because of several reasons. One, Israelis cannot survive without the help of the United States. They need the US money, they need the US military. And you see in the United States, support for Israel is going down. You saw in New York, this Muslim man, Zohran Mamdani.
Yes.
He rose the Palestinian flag. He supported the Palestinian cause.
He's a Muslim.
And he's a Muslim. He's a Shia Muslim. He's the same sect as Iranians. And people voted for him. Last night, he went to the White House and he repeated this idea that there was a genocide, and he said that American taxpayers paid for the genocide. So he has not given up the idea of anti-Israel rhetoric even after the election. And this population will grow because there is a demographic change in the United States. Trump tried to stop immigration to US, but it's too late. This demographic change is going to come. This is the US Census Bureau data that the United States is going to have a white minority by 2045, in 20 years. And this racism that existed in the United States that suppressed minorities and suppressed people outside, same mentality, this white supremacist mentality is going to go away little by little. And if the Israelis don't have the support of the United States, Europeans will not support the Israelis in this manner. You saw countries like Spain,
France.
Ireland,
France.
France lesser degree, but Spain, Ireland, they were really upset about what they saw. So this is one reason. One reason that they will support the Western governments, US government support. This will expedite their demise. The second reason, within occupied territories, the population of Palestinians is more than Israelis now. This is one reason they wanted genocide. They wanted to force them out. Because since 2020, there are more non-Israelis than Israelis in historical Palestine. And sooner or later, people will demand right to vote. So the solution for Palestine is a one-state solution. This is what Iran has been saying for many years. Iran saying to the Western governments, do you believe in democracy? They say yes. Okay, if you believe in democracy, let them vote.
One man, one vote.
One man, one vote. This is what Iran been saying for 30 years. Last 30 years, one man, one vote. If you believe in democracy. Because they said that Israel is only democracy in the Middle East. Okay, if it's only democracy in the Middle East, why don't you let the people who live there vote? They have this apartheid, only the Zionists can vote. So this is reason number two. Gradually, you will have pressure on Israel to accept the one-state solution. The third reason is internal difficulties inside Israel. You have some extremist groups that are fighting with more liberal Jews. So you have extremists and the population growth of these extremist people are more than liberal ones. So little by little, they take over this city administration. And if you're a liberal Jew, you cannot live under this extremist ideology. And Israelis generally have 2-3 other passports. So because they came from other places, they have kept the passport of the countries they came. So there is this reverse migration. Yeah. So they are moving out. They are moving out. Because when they were encouraged to come in, the propaganda, Israeli government propaganda, was that you come in, we give you free land, we give you money, we give you job, we give you everything. Come. They were encouraging people to come because Israel is great, very good. Now, the economy is not in a good shape. The land belongs to other people. The land doesn't belong to them, it belongs to other people. And they look up the window and they see missiles coming from Iran. So there is no security, because if they attack Iran, Iran will respond. This is no place to live. They need to go back to the countries that they belong. They should not be occupying other people's land. And they realize that. This is why I think maybe within 15, 20 years, you'll have this demise of Israel. It's a trend. Little by little, they will lose support. Pressure from outside will be more. And this demographic change, exit of people will result in end of Israel. So I'm very optimistic about future. The future is going to be a Middle East that's free from Israeli domination, a Middle East that's free from American domination. So countries like Iran, Iran is number one in oil and gas. No country has more oil and gas than Iran. So Iran is a resourceful country. They can trade, they can have good economic relations with, and people remember the fact that Brazil was helping Iran when at the time of difficulty. Why? Because they eat Brazilian meat. So they remember that Brazil was trading with Iran when Iran was sanctioned. So the Iranians remember the friends they had during difficult times, and they would have better relations with these countries that were friendly with them during difficult times. So in the future, I think the Brazilian-Iranian relations will increase, will improve, especially Iran is part of BRICS now, so there's a lot of BRICS cooperation. And the future is going to be a more peaceful world because the trend is on our side. You cannot do genocide all the time. Maybe you can do genocide for 1 year, for 2 years, but you cannot do it forever. And we realized that they had to stop. They had no other choice.
You talk about the sanctions. What's the economic impact of the American sanctions against Iran?
It's difficult. So we have, the sanctions hurt the lower segments of society. The rich people in society, sanctions, no problem. They can afford sanctions. But the lower segments of society, they are affected negatively. The idea behind sanctions is to put pressure on people, so they get tired, they come to the streets, they do riots, they change the government. It's easier to do that than sending F-35s and bombing places. If you can make Iranians do regime change for you, it's easier than you want to do it from air, sending bombs. So the sanctions are hurting, even in terms of medicine. Medicine is not sanctioned, but because of banking sanctions, Iranian companies cannot pay for them. They have the money to pay for the medicine, but they cannot pay. A lot of side effects of sanctions Iran is experiencing. And overall, I think this culture of resistance will help Iran to survive sanctions, and gradually the US will lose its power to create painful sanctions, because in order for sanctions to work, you need cooperation of other countries. If Russia, China, Brazil, if they don't cooperate, if they don't listen to American politicians, then sanctions will not have much effect. And I think we are moving towards that direction.
So what's the situation of the relationship between Iran and Russia and China? What can you describe this? Because in the past there is no such a good place in many times. What's the situation of Iranian, Russian, and China relationship?
The relationship is getting better because Chinese realize if United States forces Iranian government to fall and dominates Iran and disintegrates Iran, then they will dominate the whole Middle East. Right now, China is getting about 50% of its fossil fuel from Persian Gulf. 50%, 50. So China is very much dependent on fossil fuel from here. And Saudis sell oil, UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, all of these countries sell oil. And the US, it's not bothering them. Why? Because if they want to limit sale of oil to China, then the value of Iranian oil will go up, because they cannot dominate Iran. Because they don't want the value of Iranian oil to go up, US will allow these client states to sell oil. But if they manage to dominate Iran, if the current government falls, then they can force every country not to sell oil, put pressure on China. And Chinese understand that. That's why they're buying oil from Iran, that's why they're helping Iran. So Iran-China relations are relatively good. Iran-Russia relations are also good because of Ukraine. The United States created Ukraine so they can put pressure on Russia. Ukraine is causing difficulties for Russia on the western borders. If Iran falls, Iran is on the southern border of Russia. So the only way Russians can have access to the Indian Ocean, to Persian Gulf, is through Iran. The other route is Afghanistan and Pakistan, and there is not much infrastructure in Afghanistan. There are a lot of difficulties, security problems in Afghanistan. So Russians realize that if Iran falls, Iran is going to be another Ukraine for Russia. It's going to cause difficulty. Western governments will cause difficulties for Russia. So Russia-Iran relations are good because it's in the interest of Russia to have good relations with Iran. So overall, the relations are good. Iran expected more, maybe. Iranian president 2 days ago said that he expected more help from Russia and China. So sometimes they are military, economic, other things. But overall, they're doing fine.
If you talk about the region, the West Asia region, last week, Saudi Arabia prince went to the White House. It was received in a major dinner party. And then there was some business with F-15 and engagement in NATO. How do you see this movement of Trump that tries to attract the Saudi Arabia? That's a key country in this region. What is Trump going to succeed in attract Saudi Arabia or not?
You know, Saudis have been asking 4 things from the United States. Number one, this Mr. bin Salman, who is the crown prince, was not crown prince until a few years ago. Mohammed bin Khalid, his cousin, he was prime minister. He was the crown prince, and it was a joint operation by UAE leader and United States to change the crown prince in Saudi Arabia, to bring Mohammed bin Salman, because they thought he's a younger person, inexperienced, and also very violent. He's a very violent person. You remember what he did to the journalist, Khashoggi?
Yes.
It was much more complicated like that. It was chopping the body with chainsaw. Very, very ugly. Very ugly. So they don't know how to kill people. They think that they have to chop their body in order to kill. So Mr. bin Salman is worried because a lot of people in the US Congress don't like him because they think that he's not mentally stable and he will, Saudi Arabia is important for US. They want some stable king there. They don't want some crazy, criminal running the country. So the first thing Mohammed bin Salman wanted from Trump is to let him be king, because his father is very ill. Father may die anytime, any day. So he wanted to make sure that Americans don't oppose his king becoming king, because Americans have a lot of influence in Saudi Arabia. That's the request number one. The second request they had was this major non-NATO ally. Saudi Arabia cannot be NATO, but they wanted to be an ally that the US will help if there is a war. The third thing they wanted was these F-35s, more sophisticated airplanes. The fourth thing, they want enrichment of uranium inside the country. They want nuclear facilities and enrichment of uranium inside the country. These are the 4 things that he wanted. But the Trump administration told him that if you want these 4 things, you need to recognize Israel and normalize relations with Israel and join the Abraham Accords. This is what the Trump administration said. So what they are doing is that they say we give you F-35, but it's a law in the United States that Israel needs to have a qualitative edge. So if Israel has F-35, Saudi cannot have. So it would be a reduced version.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even give them the code because they need, in order to, so if the Saudis want to bomb Yemen, they give them the code. If they want to bomb someplace the US doesn't like, it's useless. It's like Qatar. Qatar bought $19 billion worth of anti-aircraft missiles, and there was no use. When Israel attacked, all of them were silent because Israel did not want Qatar to be able to defend itself. With regard to enrichment inside the country, not going to happen. Not going to happen. With regard to major non-NATO ally, they signed an agreement, but how much the US will help Saudis if there are difficulties, that's doubtful. And with regard to the fourth one, I think the United States is going to decide whether they want him to succeed or some other one. So the trip was not that successful because all four areas where there is ambiguity in terms of what will happen, whether the Americans will do what the Americans said they would do when it comes to Saudi government.
So, coming back, we came back to America, and I'd like to know about your opinion. Before you told us about the media aggressions done by the America using like government media like Voice of America and others. What about the so-called regular media? Is it what's your opinion about what's happened, say, with New York Times, Washington Post, and American media in general?
You know, in the United States, you have the mainstream media, and this mainstream media belong to the big corporations in the United States. They call them corporate media because they are part of some bigger media company, and these companies, these media outlets, these mainstream media outlets don't like Iran. There's a lot of Zionist influence in these companies. They follow US orders generally when it comes to foreign policy. So the coverage of these news outlets is not very good when it comes to Iran. Then you have the alternative media in the United States. And the alternative media is generally in a better shape. They don't have a lot of information, but the information they have, they try to present it in a more balanced way. And this alternative media is doing a good job when it comes to Palestine. You see, if the people in New York, if their source of information was the mainstream media, they would not be pro-Palestinian, they would be pro-Israeli. So it shows that they have other source of information, this alternative media. So the work that you do is very important. Why? Because we now realize that alternative media can have an important effect on its audience when they are looking for information that's not corrupted.
In the last decades, nuclear plans, Iran nuclear plans are being used to all sorts of speculations and attacks. What can you tell us about the status of the nuclear plans of Iran, and did the U.S. succeed in the attack, or Iran last day, 3 days ago, tell that they will not allow any more visitors because it's useless. What can you tell us about this part, the nuclear issue?
You know, Iranian nuclear sites were hit by United States and Israel, and so what we know is that they are damaged. The extent of damage we don't know, and the Iranian leaders don't want to provide this information because if the US or Israelis don't know where to hit, then they have to get that information before the next attack. But if they have all the information, then they will attack sooner. Why? Because they know the places that they need to hit. I was on this Arabic channel Al Mayadeen 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago. And they had another guest. They had 2 other guests, one from UK, one from Egypt. The guest from Egypt was an International Atomic Energy Agency inspector for 25 years. I have the video, if you want I can show you. He was the director of the inspections of IAEA for 5 years. So he worked for IAEA for about 30 years. And he was saying on television that 90% of the advisors at IAEA belong to Western intelligence services. 90%. If you want, I can send you the video on WhatsApp. 90% of advisors work for Western intelligence. So giving information to IAEA is giving information to CIA, is giving information to Mossad. There's no, they don't keep any secrets. They are there to pass this information. And it's understandable for Iranian leaders to ask questions from IAEA. If you give you this information, will you keep it to yourself or you will pass it? Because the past experience has been that they will give it to other countries, hostile countries against Iran.
So let's wait and see.
Okay. Okay. Back to our meeting.
Want some water?
Okay. Thank you. That's yeah.
During this morning meeting, you were asked about the accomplishment of Iranian revolution. Why was it done? And what has it accomplished so far in these 46 years?
46
Yes.
years.
So the first accomplishment is that we kicked Americans out. Because if you have Americans in, then your resources are plundered. So if you have independence, then that's the first accomplishment. How do we know we kicked Americans out? We met you at the former American embassy. They are not there. They were forced out. So that's the first accomplishment. Once the country becomes independent, then the resources of that country can be used for the benefit of the people. So this is what I said this morning, that before the revolution, the average age in Iran was 53. Now it's 79. So you have this huge increase in average age, which shows there's better food, better medicine, availability of doctors, cleaner environment, better schooling. So I mentioned this Human Development Index, HDI, which is a UN data. So if you look at growth, some European countries are ahead of us. But in terms of growth, where Iran was and where Iran is now, Iran is number 1 in the world in terms of growth. Number 2 is South Korea. Iran is number 1 because Iran's situation was very bad, and in the last few decades since the revolution, a lot of ordinary citizens are benefiting from the wealth of the country. So with all the sanctions, all the difficulties, all the wars, still people are doing much better than the time that there was no sanctions and Iran was a puppet of the United States. And this is the fruit of being independent. Being independent is difficult, but not being independent is even more difficult. So that's why a lot of people are not affected by this propaganda, because they realize what Iran was before. And the people who made the revolution were from ordinary citizens, from smaller towns. So when they came into power, they started helping their own people. And their own people were ordinary citizens from smaller towns. And this is how you had this. So we have an achievement in terms of politics. Iran is independent. Achievement in terms of economy for ordinary citizens. They're benefiting more now than before. And we have this cultural achievement. People can resist outside pressure. And we have this social achievements. There's this unity, especially after the war, that can help the country to resist American imperialism.
And what about the fact of being an Islamic republic?
You know,
Religion and politics.
you know, in Brazil, most people are Catholics, right? Catholics.
Yes.
So in Catholicism, you have this liberation theology. You're familiar with liberation theology?
Teologia da libertação.
Yes.
Yes.
These priests who were concerned about
The
poor.
poor. Yes. Yes.
This is in Iran, majority are Muslim. And in Islam, we have this Muslim liberation theology. So these clerics that were concerned about poor and ordinary citizens. And these clerics had the revolution, made the revolution. They resisted the Shah. Because during Shah's time, all opposition was suppressed. But it was difficult to suppress the religious opposition because of the mosques. Because every corner you have a mosque. And schools. A school, not very much a school, the mosque. And difficult to manage all the mosques. So the religious opposition managed to survive even during the Shah. They had a network of mosques. And
They are listening to the Khomeini.
on tapes. On tapes. They would. He was in Iraq. He was exiled in Iraq. So he would do speeches, put it on tapes, and people would listen. And this is how it happened. So unlike Christianity, Christianity during colonialism was used for colonial powers.
Yes.
So in Brazil, a lot of
Yes.
indigenous people, they were forced to become Christian. Not good. God does not allow you to suppress other people or put a lot of pressure on people unreasonably. So this is not good religion. This is religion used to advance some colonialist goal. But in Islam, generally didn't have that because we didn't have the era of colonialism. It was a European experience. We did not have an Islamic colonialism in that sense. And the result was that the clerics in Islam managed to become sort of more independent from the state. They managed to basically save themselves from corruption of the state. And because of this reason, people respected them more. So there was this relationship between the ordinary citizens and the clerics. Clerics liked the people liked the clerics. So religion in Iran actually helped this anti-imperialist movement. Unlike the experience of Christianity, that religion was used to suppress indigenous people. Religion was used to sort of make masses comply with the wishes of the state. In the Islamic experience, clerics were sources of refuge for people. So when the corrupt rulers engaged in oppression, people found religion and found clerics to protect them to some degree. This is why when the clerics rose against the government, there was a lot of ordinary citizen support, and this is why you had the revolution.
But the revolution was also a product of mass movements in factories, in the refineries. There is a union movement at that time, in 79. And I read that the Communist Party was also a very important force at that time. What can you tell us about this movement that, besides religion, took place in Iran at that time? And what can you tell us about the opposition nowadays, the communists and the other forces, the left forces, they are in Iran, and how they manage to cope with the government?
The experience of communism in Iran was somewhat different from countries like Latin America. In Latin America, after the Monroe Doctrine, the United States wanted to dominate Latin America, and communist ideology, socialist ideology was used to fight back against American imperialism. So communism, socialism, like liberation theology, were good forces within society to fight back. In Iran, because we are close to Soviet Union, and before in 1979, Soviet Union was still alive. It fell in the early 1990s. So Iran had border with Soviet Union. These Azerbaijan Republic, Armenia, all were part of the Soviet Union. This Turkmenistan, part of the Soviet Union. So Iran had border with Soviet Union, and Soviet Union was a communist country and wanted to influence Iran as a neighbor. So we had the Tudeh party, which was the communist party. We had the Tudeh party. And the Tudeh party became too close to the Soviets. So sometimes the interest of your country and the interest of the neighboring country is not the same, especially when the neighboring country wants to dominate your country. So the experience of communism in Iran was not very successful because they were seen as too close to another superpower that was not behaving properly. You know, they invaded Afghanistan, they had plans for Iran. So it is true that before the revolution, unions were active, workers were active, farmers were active, but these are from lower segments of Iranian society. And the lower segments of Iranian society are even more religious than the richer segments. So they did not need communism because communism was preaching staying away from religion. And for example, in Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, Commander Chavez, he was socialist, maybe he was communist, we don't know. But he was also religious. He had these religious feelings.
Like Maduro is.
Like Maduro, right? But so they managed to be both religion and socialist. In Iran, the Communist Party, Tudeh Party, was telling people, don't need for religion. You just have to be communist. If you want to be communist, leave religion aside. And if people wanted to decide between communism and religion, most people kept religion because communism was a foreign idea. It came from Europe. It came from Soviet Union. It was not indigenous. And in order to resist, they had religion, clerics and religion. So initially, after the revolution, the cooperation was good. But after some months, some communist parties, not all, some communist parties said that, well, you know, because of communist doctrine, the revolution should come from village side and workers, and not from cities. In Iran, it was reversed. It was from the cities that revolution started, especially religious cities like Qom. You're going to Qom or Mashhad, these cities. So the communists realized that the popularity of these religious organizations was more. So there was this political competition a little bit for power. And then, unfortunately, some of them picked up arms. So it became a hot competition. So there were some difficulties with communist parties. But this is 46, 45 years ago. Nowadays, the left in Iran generally supports the government because they realize Iran is resisting imperialism. So these are the younger people, the people who did not see. The left in Iran is similar to left in Latin America in their support for their own government, especially after the war, after these aggressions, after sanctions. So we have in our students at university, we have some students that are leftist students. But they like me more than some other people because we have this anti-imperialist ideology, similar ideology in terms of anti-imperialism, and Iran is working very good with socialist countries like Cuba, like Venezuela. I've been to Venezuela 5 times, and one time the Venezuela government had sent a plane to Iran to be fixed because they have Boeing, and the US is not giving them service because of American sanctions. So when the planes break down or have needed service, the Iranians can fix, because Iranians had Boeings, and for 45 years we didn't have service. So we have more experience with fixing Boeings. So when Venezuela wants to fix a plane, they send it to Iran, for Iran to update and fix. So one time I was invited and we decided this was a plane going back to Venezuela. So we boarded that plane. It was an empty plane, so it was not a commercial plane. So it was me, the pilot, the co-pilot, and we had one service person.
You had a ballroom?
Yeah, the whole plane, empty plane. So Iran is providing this type of service to countries like Venezuela. And when they had blackout, Iranian engineers would go there, would try to fix Iran oil industry, because we have a lot of experience with oil wells, and so a lot of cooperation between Iran and these leftist governments. In Ecuador, when Ecuador had a leftist government, I went to Ecuador once that time. Yes, and Nicaragua, countries like that, Bolivia during previous government, Colombia now. So Iran has good relations with countries that are under US pressure. Iran has good relations. So no problem with communist, socialist ideology. We work with them much easier. For example, in Turkey, we work with communist parties much easier than the government. Government is NATO member. The communist parties in Turkey very close to us. I'm going to a conference in December 12th, I think the date is, to Turkey. The host is this leftist party in Turkey. So things are now, relations are good. In the past, there were some difficulties.
And what about the young women? There is, one of the things that are said in the Western about Iran is that it's a country that oppresses the women. Women are oppressed all over the world. Unfortunately, it's a problem, international problem. But in Iran, the propaganda is generally false. Generally false. I mentioned this to you this morning, that at University of Teherã, 60% of the students are female. At our college, the first year we had PhD, 5 seats, 5 female students, because ladies study more, they're smarter, so they get all these academic seats. And actually, Islamic Revolution helped Iranian women, because before, the religious families would not send their girls to universities because the environment was not religious, was somewhat corrupt. They thought it's corrupt. But after revolution, no problem. Girls go to universities. So it actually helped women participation. And they want to use these propaganda points to create a negative image of Iran outside. Why? Because next time they want to attack Iran, so people in the world say, okay, the government was not good, it was suppressing women, so no problem, US can attack. So they're working on the public opinion internationally to create a monster out of Iran, so they can attack Iran easier, they can sanction Iran easier. You're in Tehran, you can walk for yourself, you see, you don't see any problem, you hardly see any police. Iran is a very normal country with all the sanctions. You go to shops, you go to markets,
things are normal. It's like Brasilia. It's like any other place. It's not. You don't feel all the pressure when you're in Iran.
We went to the metro today, and there were some cars of the trains, women only.
Yeah, you know, the carts in the back, women, in front, men and women, both. So if a female, they can go to the woman section or they can go to mixed section. Sometimes families, they go together to mixed section. Sometimes, you know, when it's crowded, sometimes it's crowded. Females want to be alone, so they go all together. So this is a way of sort of making them safer, making them feel easier, instead of being mixed, especially when, you know, at this time is a rush hour, so the metro becomes very, very crowded.
We have this in Rio de Janeiro,
Yes.
this kind of separation. Thinking about the future, you said to us that you are optimistic.
Yes.
Thinking about Iran, what do you say it should be the 3 or the 4 challenges that Iran must overcome to get better? What's the issues that are the problems, the most important problems that Iran should overcome?
You know, the first challenge is the challenge of sanctions, because it's putting a lot of pressure on ordinary citizens. So, and BRICS can work in Iran's advantage if Iran can work more with BRICS countries. And these are major countries: China, Brazil, Russia, major economies. So that's number one, finding ways of going around sanctions, because sanctions are going to be there. No matter, you know, we do nuclear agreement, sanctions. Don't have nuclear agreement, sanctions. Talking to the other side, bombing. So there's lots of difficulties. So the first issue is the issue of sanctions. The second issue, we have a drought because of global warming.
And here in Iran.
In Tehran and all the Middle East, not just Iran, this region. This region is suffering from drought because of global warming. So we have to come up with a solution for that, because, you know, if you don't have water, Brazil is good. It's in Amazon, lots of rain, so you don't have that much problem. But in Iran, there's this drought issue. The third issue is this cultural propaganda that's, as I said, bombing Iranian minds. We have over 300 Farsi channels from outside, 300 television stations from outside, bombing every day. So that causes difficulties in terms of social coercion. It affects that negatively. So there should be some solution for that. This issue of neoliberalism is difficult. We have some individuals in Iran, some politicians that believe in neoliberalism, which is against the idea of Islamic revolution. Islamic revolution rejected neoliberalism. But because of sanctions, some people say that the way to make the country strong is to accept these neoliberal policies. So that's challenge number 4. The fifth challenge is to make sure that Iran's image internationally is not so negative. Because if it wasn't for Iran, you would not have the Palestinian cause. The reason, because, you know, you had this PLO all going to Oslo agreement, sort of going through this peace process that resulted in nothing. So what Iran did was support the resistance in Palestine, and the resistance in Palestine kept Palestinians alive. So this is the fifth issue, to be able to continue this policy. So the Americans have been telling Iran, if you lower your support for Palestine, we'll get all the sanctions out. Some politicians in Iran say that let's do that. So making sure that Iran's foreign policy stays independent is another important issue.
And this is a decision of the religion part of the government. What do you think is the balance between the religion leaders and the civilian leaders on that issue?
You know, in Iran there are elections. And if you have a politician telling people that, look, if I get voted, I go negotiate with the United States, I get the sanctions off, sometimes they get voted. This is how Pezeshkian was elected.
Yeah.
He told people that I don't want to be fighting US, I want to normalize relations. So when you have a population that's under pressure, if someone comes and says, look, I'll make all the pressures go away, he gets voted. So sometimes there are these difficulties, but this is what you have in democracy. Democracy, sometimes you get Bolsonaro, sometimes you get De Silva, so it goes back and forth.
In these days here in Tehran, we've been reading a lot and hearing a lot about revolution, Islamic revolution, Iranian revolution. What is to be a revolutionary today?
One criteria is to oppose the United States imperialism, whether it's in Iran or internationally. That's criteria number one. Number two, support for Palestine. Support for Palestine. If you don't care about Palestine, you are not revolutionary. You are disqualified. Number three, support for the poor. If you don't care about the poor, you are not revolutionary. Number four, support for independence of countries. If the US dominates your country, you are not revolutionary. So I think if these four criteria are maintained, then you can add a fifth one about spirituality. Because if you want to have resistance, you cannot do it without some internal peace. And in order to have internal peace, some people need to have a strong spirituality. Otherwise they would be sort of under pressure and they will give up. So these 4 or 5 issues I think is important.
Do you believe that the youngest people, the youth in Iran has this feeling of revolutionary feeling, or that generation that made the revolution in 1979 is now dying? This generation, or is old? Our generation. What do you believe? Do you believe that this young generation has this kind of revolutionary feeling about things?
Some have, some don't. It depends on the families.
The families?
The families.
More than the schools?
More than the schools, because children are influenced by family more than the school, generally. And you know, when the revolution happened, the form of government changed. But Western influence in Iran was extensive. So the families that were Westernized, they're still here. Their children are here. So that Western mentality still exists. So some young people have that spirit, some don't. The war against Iran helped to make more revolutionary people, young people. So Trump wanted to damage Iran, but in practice, he helped younger people in Iran realize what American imperialism is. And this has been one of the successes of the revolution. They managed to pass the ideas of revolution to a segment of younger people. Mm-hmm. So when there are difficulties, you have demonstrations in Iran, lots of young people in demonstrations. Or when this war started, a lot of young people volunteered. So there are some challenges in that area, but generally we are moving towards a more positive position.
Okay.
Would like to thank you very much.
No problem.
for this
Sure.
interview, for all this information
Sure,
about Iran and the revolution. And before we finish, I'd like you to send your message to the Brazilian people.
Yes. So I'm sorry I'm speaking to you in English. I don't know Portuguese. I know a little bit of Spanish, but that's not helping. So I hope to visit you in Iran, like the friends that we have. Of course, the distance is long, but since most of you cannot come to Iran, I hope that we can keep in touch through internet, through these type of programs. It's important that you learn about Iran from Iranians instead of learning about Iran from United States or some Western media outlet. And then you can decide whether believe Iranians or believe Western media outlets. It's your decision. But although Iran and Brazil are far in terms of distance, both countries' people are warm. There is this warmth that it's very clear. And this resistance against imperialism, actually Brazil has more history than Iran because Brazil is closer to US. So we started having problems with the US in the 1950s. But Brazil had problems with US domination much earlier.
Yes.
So with the help that we can have, I think we can go forward. The governments are working, like under BRICS and other forms, but the people need to connect more. So the friends that we have here have my telephone number. If at some university or some other outlet, they need to have internet speech or connection or question and answer, you can contact the producers of this program and I'll be at your service. So keep hope alive, as we say, and continue resisting.